So big supermarket chains have been sounding the alarm of late regarding the dire impact load shedding is having on their bottom line. Gareth Ackerman of Pick n Pay recently saying their results clearly show how much the scheduled power cuts are costing them. Well, today the Agriculture Minister detailed her budget vote speech with a focus on food security in the midst of these challenges. Let's get comment now from Christo van Rheede, CEO of Agri SA. Christo, always great to chat to you, and thank you very much for joining us. You've described this as a critical budget, and you said that the minister's focused on the right issues. Just take us through in a nutshell what those big important points were that you were happy to see her focusing on.
The minister emphasised three critical issues. One relates to the energy fund, obviously to assist farmers that are currently facing huge challenges when it comes to load shedding. The second issue relates to market access, and especially dealing with all the regulatory issues that farmers are confronted with when they export to especially the EU and other countries. And then the third issue related to biosecurity. We've seen outbreaks of foot and mouth disease, also outbreak of food or blue tongue disease, as well as other diseases. And we've had a serious challenge when it comes to the availability of vaccines. So emphasis on honest support, which is responsible for manufacturing vaccines, was on the money. And we trust that we will see some movement in terms of these critical issues that she has mentioned in her budget speech.
Talk to us about this energy fund. We know that special provisions have been made to help farmers decrease the costs of perhaps getting solar power, etc. How much support is it providing for farmers, and is it enough, whether it's a small-scale farmer or a large enterprise?
I think for big farmers, obviously it's categorized into three groups: small-scale farmers that get a grant portion, as well as a loan portion. They can access that to get funding for any type of alternative electricity generation source. Then you've got your medium farmers. They can have a 50% grant portion together with a 50% loan portion to do the same. And then your bigger farmers to the tune of 4.5 million rand. That's the kind of money they can access to purchase a system. The big issue relates to whether that kind of money is enough to really secure a top-notch system that can provide enough electricity for big processing plants and big irrigation systems. That remains to be seen, because you still need Eskom electricity to drive those bigger systems. But yes, I think it's a step in the right direction, and we welcome it. But I think what needs to be done is to leverage it, because the state contribution should be combined with financial institutions, big banks, so that more money can be made available. I think we're going to have a serious challenge in terms of the amount that will be made available, because the needs are so big. But if you combine it and you leverage it together with what your financial institutions also bring to the table in terms of their green energy funds, then I think it will be able to assist on a larger scale.
Food supply is currently under enormous pressure, and the impact of the power cuts are adding costs at every level. So the consumer ends up paying more, despite the efforts from farmer to supermarket retailers to actually keep costs down. It's gone up, I think, at least 14% year on year. We're currently in stage 6 power cuts. We're being warned it's going to be a terribly difficult winter. We could go to stage 8. Give me an idea of how farms are doing at the moment with the current intense level of load shedding, and what the outlook is really for the rest of the year.
Most farmers are really forking out huge amounts of money just to get electricity onto the farm. They spend millions on diesel, the purchasing of diesel generators, the servicing of diesel generators. And yes, they have to fork out a lot of money for alternative systems. But besides that, farmers have been facing huge increases in input costs. For example, we've seen tremendous increase in the price of fertilizer. Yes, it is coming down and we welcome that. But overall, input cost remains high. And you have an exchange rate that is not really favorable to imports from overseas. And it drives up cost. And then in addition, we've seen almost 300, or repo rate has gone up by almost 300 basis points, which makes the cost of capital even more expensive. But remember, farmers are not just forking out money for input costs. Farmers take care of their own roads. In many instances, farmers need to take care of delivery of certain services, basic services, which municipalities do not deliver. And then in addition, farmers have to take care of their own security. So they have a lot of additional cost that impacts on their ability to farm profitably. And that is the big issue that we face, because ultimately it's not just farmers that are facing these struggles throughout the value chain. Your processing companies, your retailers, your logistic companies face massive challenges. And on top of that, they have to fork out money. So yes, it's a massive burden for the entire agricultural value chain, and it impacts ultimately on the price that consumers pay.
And at the same time, we're hearing that some 6 million South Africans, this is an estimate, are going hungry, which is extremely worrying. We know that the agriculture sector has weathered so many storms of late, you know, this current load shedding crisis, but we've also seen farming continuing during COVID, during restrictions, during infestation, during foot and mouth. When you hear that there are 6 million odd South Africans going hungry, I would imagine that as someone who provides food for a living, you must have some thoughts on what's going wrong. Is it that we don't have enough food? Are we not distributing the food properly? Wherein, for you, lies the solution to this?
First and foremost, it starts with what our national constitution requires of us. Section 27 says people must have access to food. I've never seen politicians producing food. That responsibility rests with farmers. It's not land that produces food, but it's expertise. And you would expect our government to really create a conducive environment for that expertise to be nurtured, that expertise to be empowered, and that expertise to be given the opportunity to do what they do best, and that is to produce food. And we've done so successfully, especially during the COVID period when our minister decided, but let's declare the agricultural services as an essential service. Imagine what would have happened if that was not the case. But now we're at a point where we get it from all sides. Load shedding, crime, also rising input costs, and a whole range of other factors that makes it very difficult to provide a constant flow of affordable food. Now, what is the big challenge? And I think South Africa needs to be thankful for the role that farmers fulfill. Yes, we've got hunger, but we do not have famine. That is the case in some African countries. But it remains a big concern that a big portion of our country cannot afford the food that we produce because it has become too expensive, but more so, they don't have jobs. Unemployment is the biggest driver of poverty. And I think government needs to realize, create circumstances which attracts investment, and it's through investment that you can create more job opportunities and get rid of all the stumbling blocks that impedes on job creation. That is our appeal to government, because we do what we do best, and that is to produce food. But if that food does not land on the table of people, then it becomes a massive challenge.
Yeah. And of course, we heard the minister today talking about plans to create more land, make more land available for more farming practices, because of course more farms can mean more jobs, and it can mean more exports, more money for the economy. But of course it is extremely difficult now with the power crisis that we are dealing with. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. It's much appreciated. As always, Christo van Rheede, he's Agri SA CEO.